Hey, everybody, I'm Andy Weinberg, and welcome to episode 131 of the David Uosikkinen in the Pocket podcast. Good to see you, Dave. Good to see you, Fred Berman, with us as always.
Hey.
See you guys.
Likewise.
And we're not going to waste time with a long introduction here because we need to get right to our guest, because I'm sure with the stories he could tell, we could probably talk to him for about 5 hours, and we only have an hour. So we're going to bring him on in just a second. His name is Paul Rappaport. He just wrote a book. It just came out, I think, a couple weeks ago. The title is Gliders Over Hollywood, Airships, Airplay, and the Art of Rock Promotion. And he should know because he was the senior VP of rock promotion at Columbia Records for 33 and a third years. And the stories he could tell, and he tells a hell of a lot of them in the book. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
First of all, I'm so thrilled that you can join us. This is one of those books that at the end of the day, after I finished, I was bummed that it was over. I mean,
thank you so much.
You're a beautiful writer. You write, eloquently, and you're just the stories, and you got your son, Sam, and it's Adam and Sam, right?
Adam and Sam, yeah.
Adam and Sam, and the stories about you, Sharon, and everything in the early days, to working with Pink Floyd, the Rolling Stones, Paul McCartney, even my band, the Hooters. I mean, remarkable stuff, man. I'm telling you, brilliant book.
Okay, well, just lose the word "even" your band, the Hooters.
Okay, well, man,
as I recall, we sold millions of records.
Yeah, we did. Listen, I kind of knew that I was meeting a rock star in the music industry when I met you, because you came with a reputation and you were already doing it. We're finding out, I figured for a long time, but I found out in the book you started in the mid 70s, and you started in college radio, and how it's interesting how you worked your way up to doing what you're doing. But it's fascinating to hear that. I did a talk at a college the other day, and I brought the book, and I told them, you want to know how it used to be? Read the book. This is it. I mean, I told them all. I said, they all wrote it down. They're getting the book. I said, this is the way. This is the way. Everybody wanted to do it. If you were successful, this is the way you do it. But this is the way it was done. I mean, you hook the readers right away when you start talking about the Springsteen show at the Roxy.
Right. Yeah.
And the program director. I'm dying to know who that is. But that story about making
well, look,
okay, well, amazing stuff.
Okay, we just one point of I don't know, one point of interest. I wasn't the head of rock for 33 years. I worked for Columbia Records for
there you go.
For 33 and a third years, yes, as it would turn out.
Yeah.
Which was amazing to me. No, like you said, I started in college. I worked my way up. I did local promotion. I was really the first FM promotion man in the country, just dedicated to FM rock radio, because it was an experiment as the music was exploding in the early 70s. So Columbia figured they needed that, and then they quickly went to a regional team. And then in '80, I came to New York to run the rock department, which is when I met you guys.
Yeah, with Matt. Matt was there too, right?
Yes. Jim McKeon says to say hello to you.
He changed. He after he moved to the West Coast. Oddly enough, he was my sister Susan's neighbor in Seattle.
No, he told me that.
Crazy.
She goes, she's met him. She goes, "Oh, maybe my brother. He's in a band called the Hooters."
Yes.
Hooters.
Wild. Jim was.
I work really close with the Hooters, right?
Good guy. Super good guy.
No, and I will tell you, he really helped me with this book. This book has had 4 editors. Jim was the third one, and he painstakingly went through it with me, paragraph by paragraph, line by line, word by word. Wow. That's the kind of attention that was put into this book. I mean, it took me 6 years to write this book.
Oh,
writing, rewriting, throwing things out, putting things back in.
Yeah.
That kind of attention to detail.
Yeah.
So I learned how to write by writing a blog. I wrote a rock blog for about 10 years. And so that's where I found my writer's voice.
Yeah.
I think I'm like a natural storyteller. I got that from my dad, but writing is different. Writing is a craft, and you have to learn how to do that.
Sure. Sure. And your dad and mom were, you talk about your dad and mom in the book eloquently as well. Like your dad seemed like such a cool guy. And your mom, wow, man. She gave you, she sounded like she was tough and beautiful and helped you so much.
Yeah.
Your DNA, just the way she was made you who you are.
Well, I used to tease her because I'd say, "Hey, Mom, the 6 degrees of separation thing, now I'm losing my mind, that Kevin Bacon."
Yes.
So she said, yeah. She said, "So what?" So I said, "Well, I played a really big part in Alice in Chains.
I love that part of the book.
Breaking on mass radio, which was difficult because no one understood the music at the time. Right. Everybody's used to playing Van Halen and
I got a good story.
Foreigner, and so Alice comes along and you read about it in the book. It's very difficult. It's hardest thing I ever did as head of rock promotion. Yeah. But we work and we finally break through, which paves the way for mass media radio for the Seattle sound, right? So it's not that the bands weren't happening, the Seattle sound was happening, but Alice is the first to break through on rock radio, and so then it's easier for Pearl Jam and Nirvana and all these other people. I said, "Hey, Ma, so listen, I wouldn't have wound up going to UCLA if you hadn't told me, you're reading the book, suggested to me that I should try, even though I didn't have the A+ grade average." She said, "Look, you have a lot of other interests, and they want well-rounded kids." And so she told me to apply, which I wasn't going to do. Lo and behold, I apply and I, write the whole, essay about all my other interests. I'm a musician. I'm into rockets or whatever. Right. I get in. So I said, "So Ma, if I don't get into UCLA, I don't become a college rep for Columbia Records. If I don't become a college rep, I don't work my way up the ranks. I don't get to New York. And then I don't really help Alice in Chains achieve what they needed to achieve. So Ma, does that mean you're sort of like the godmother of the Seattle sound?"
and not to mention Adam running up to Donnie. Donnie say, "Donnie, it's not that single. His 10-year-old son runs up to Donnie Einer, and I met Donnie Einer.
Okay,
a bit of a scary dude. 10-year-old saying, "No, you got the wrong song. Tell us this." Paul Rappaport going, "Oh no." And I said, "Look, Donnie had probably."
The story is
great.
Okay, so look, most music people, or let's say a lot of music people, that if you're around enough, you have ears. Like you just, you could tell a hit record 30 seconds. I mean, it's just something you learn, right?
Right.
It doesn't happen to everybody, but for a lot of us, it does. So sometimes you don't, but sometimes you don't hear everything. And honestly, when I first heard, the album Alice in Chains, it caught me by surprise. Yeah, because it was a new sound that I'd never heard before. Yeah. I'd never heard guitars that crunchy. I'd never heard those parallel harmonies. It didn't quite seep in, but I was playing it for my son Adam, who was 10 years old at the time, in the car, and he lights up. Goes, "I played a Man in the Box," and he goes, "Dad, that's amazing." I'm not too proud to tell you the truth. I wrote in the book. I looked down. I went, "It is." He said, "Yeah." He goes, "We got to play the rest of this album." So he's got good ears and always had. So immediately, that's my first sort of light bulb going, "Whoa, wait a second."
Yeah. And you had to change gears because you had another band that was going to be the priority.
We had another band that was going to be a priority. It was a band called Love Hate, who I liked a lot. And they had a song called Blackout in the Red Room, which I thought was amazing. I played that for Adam. He goes, "I don't know, Dad. I don't hear it." I'm like, "Adam, we're going to drop $1 million on this band. We're putting them on tour with AC/DC. He said, "Dad, you can spend $2 million. I'm just telling you, I just don't hear it. But this other one, you got to pay attention to Alice in Chains." So I called this, friend of mine, product manager, Peter in LA, and I go, "Look, what's up with Alice in Chains?" He goes, "Oh, Rap, they're amazing. Where do you see them? These guys could go all the way." Shortly after, literally a week after, they came to play a club in New York, and I stood in front of Alice in Chains, and I had my hair blown back. Yeah. I saw the next big thing. I saw the next Led Zeppelin. I couldn't even deal with how amazing this band was.
Wow.
And then I couldn't sleep all night because I was so jazzed that it was ours. So I was like, "Oh my God, we have this band and you'll read in the book, I was going through a tough time before that. Just
like baseball player at the slump. You were in a slump.
Yeah. So it was going to sort of be, my comeback as a big time promotion guy and Alice and everything. So, but usually after you see a band live, if you don't get it right off the record, it happens sometimes. As good as any record is. I mean, the first Bruce Springsteen's record, I really liked that first record, but when I saw him live, it was like, oh, it's this. This is a different thing. Yeah. And actually, I'll tell you the truth, I almost didn't include it. I'd given the book to, I'm in a band, and I gave it to my bass player, who's also our producer and runs the studio. He read the book and he goes, hey, you just kind of glossed over this Alice in Chains Seattle Sound thing. Yeah. And I said, well, the book's getting kind of long. And he said, Rap. That's my nickname's Rap because my last name's Rappaport. Okay, so
you're Rap.
He goes, Rap, you were like a big part of this thing. Like, you can't gloss over the Alice in Chains. You have to write the chapter for Alice in Chains. And so I went, okay. And I listened and I wrote the chapter about Alice in Chains, and I'm glad I did. So, credit him with that. See, people don't understand how important drummers and bass players are in bands.
We do, Fred.
These guys do.
It doesn't matter how great a lead guitar player you are, whatever else is going on. If the bass and drums aren't happening, none of it is going to come off.
We agree.
Right. So that's a truth. And then my bass player, leaned into my book, and there was another truth, right? The rhythm section was helping me out again.
Yeah. Well, man, listen, there's so many great stories, and I just love the fact, like, I knew you were. So here's what I didn't know. I didn't know how deep you were into the guitar. I knew you were a guitar player, and I knew that, I'm guessing that you and Eric would have some conversations about the guitar, but in the book, you go into like the detail, and when you got your guitar, and even talking about and another great story is with Keith and the G tuning, when you talked about that and losing that E string and all that story. And then Hank, I mean, he was on tour with the New Barbarians. Yes. I mean, that whole thing, and having Keith accuse you of stealing his whiskey. I mean, that could be a movie, man.
I think, honestly, I think this book is a sitcom. I'm going to promote this book. I'm going to promote this book for a year, maybe longer. And then I want to bring it to television, because all these characters, and David, you met all these characters. You guys were characters, but not just the bands were characters. Yeah. All the record people were characters. The managers were characters. It's like Guys and Dolls, only it's the record business. Yeah. I mean, so I should go back just for 1 second, just to clarify, so people understand what you were talking about before, and then we'll jump to guitars. But when my son became the Alice in Chains mascot, because I had told them the story, so they loved him. So if you went backstage, you would see Adam on Jerry Cantrell's shoulders, running him around backstage, and Lane Staley, everybody's high-fiving Adam, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to this is what Dave was talking about. When it comes to the second single, we're backstage at an Alice show, and Don Einer's there. He's a big-time president of Columbia Records. And I tell Adam what the second single is going to be. And he's way into this record, right? And he goes, oh, no, Dad. You don't want Sea of Sorrow. No, that's a mistake. He goes, you want Bleed the Freak. He goes, that's the real Alice in Chains sound. He goes, you're making a mistake. You're making a mistake. I said, well, Donnie, I point to Donnie. Oh, I'll go tell Donnie. And Adam runs towards the president, of the label. Like, now awesome. Don Einer, he's a cool guy, but I can't get there in time. And Adam, his little squeaky voice is going, Donnie, you're making a mistake. It's like, you're releasing the wrong single. Don Einer is not, fond of a 10-year-old kid telling him what singles to release.
Especially got a group of people.
I have to grab Adam away, and I'm looking at Donnie and going, Donnie, don't worry. It's like,
he's a kid.
He's just a kid. So anyway, that's the rest of that story. But
it's like that scene.
It was hysterical.
That thing you do, where the guy comes up and tells him he wants to do his own album, and the president of the record company's eating a sandwich. That thing you do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that thing you do, right?
Yeah, and he's talking to the guy he's eating a sandwich, he's spitting it all over.
That's all true stuff, But I included the guitar because as I I first tried to write this book without me in it, to be honest with you. I just wanted to.
I'm
just,
so glad you have your personality.
and
the whole thing. It makes
I had to be. Yeah,
It makes the book. And the bands that you were in, and even the guys that your rhythm section, the guys that you played with, that came to work with you at Columbia. That made that book so special, and really gave you insight into who you were, who you are, as a person. I'll tell you, because and just on a personal level, I remember meeting you and thinking, I felt like I knew you for a long time. I felt like kindred spirits. I was like, and I'd only see it, periodically, but you had so much to do with our success and Tommy's success and other bands, Patty's, all these bands, and but I felt like I just felt like I knew you right away.
I think the reason, David, is because, well, first of all, I came to the business loving the music, right? I had no other agenda.
Yeah.
My whole life, I didn't have an agenda. My whole life's been like a path.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, I need to be the head of rock promotion, or I need to be this, or I need to be that. If just doors have opened for me, and I've walked through them. But as a musician, I was able to talk to you guys and other people, maybe like some other people couldn't, just because in our company, they're not. I mean, there were a lot of musicians, but I'm very comfortable talking to musicians because I am one, right? So, and I also happen to be the head of rock promotion. I also happen to know what I'm doing. So, hey, David, guess what? This is what I think I can do, to help you guys. So for me, I wanted to capture the times, right? Which you spoke of.
Doing the coke when you first went to the office, the line. That was because I remember going
maybe your first line of cocaine
in the office and doing a line of coke. And I had a very similar experience, like in the music thing with that. But that really brought back, I don't think those things happen today, but back then that kind of it was like a movie again.
Well, it's a different, look, it's a different time. It's a renaissance of music. It's a renaissance of a business making the rules up as we go along, because the explosion of rock is the early 70s. This wasn't even a real business in the beginning. CBS owned Columbia Records and Epic Records. It's a corporation. They were making their money on CBS broadcasting, television, radio. This was a side business until the rock explosion. So now Bob Dylan comes and Janis Joplin comes, and then Santana. Now, if that's not enough, I join.
Yeah.
The first record I worked for a Santana record. Next thing you know, records are coming up by a band called Aerosmith. Yeah. Some guy named Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
Loggins of Messina.
Amazing.
All of these things are starting to explode, and they realize, oh my God,
business.
This is a real business. We've got to get a hold of this, because when I first joined, get this, I wrote about it in my book. Expense accounts had no ceilings. Now think about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're a bunch of young kids who never grew up. I'm still a kid. Like I don't know if it was the business or just me, but my body's older, but my brain is still a kid.
I get it. We get it.
Right. So, and that was most of us in the business. I mean, it was a bunch of, it was a bunch of big kids posing as mature adults.
Yeah, really. It's such great. Like Jim, I got the pleasure of becoming friends with Jim Ladd.
Yes.
And Rob Hyman and I was telling the guys before he came on that I guess CBS flew us out to do an interview with him, and we got on you talk about in the book about getting in the tram. The Pink Floyd guys got into the little tram that took us up the hill, and that fucked me up, man, going up there.
No, I mean, when you go up the tram, you're like, whoa, who is this guy?
We were dudes from Philadelphia. We got on the L, the tram up there.
Laurel Canyon.
The music was like, whoa.
You guys are sitting high atop Laurel Canyon, looking out at the trees, wondering what the hell's going on.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Yes. But I really, I just wanted to capture the times. I wanted to capture some of the characters behind the scenes, not just artists like you guys, but just, the managers and some of the, what's it like to work for a record company? What is it like to be a salesman? How did it work? How did it all work? How was early FM radio? But I wanted to write it like you are there. Like as you read the book, you're having conversations with all these people. It's not like boring. That was like, I put you there, right? It's like, you are there talking to, Warehouse Records and how do we get, music in the stores and all this kind of stuff. But it's all, the conversations are all entertaining,
Yeah.
but I found that I could not write it without me in it, because it was all through my eyes, right? I was like, oh no, I need to put me in it.
Yeah.
But I didn't want it to be one of these me books. I wanted it to be
No.
like an us book, like about our times, So I'm a thread through it. So you see it through my eyes.
Totally.
But then when I started to write it, I was like, okay, wait a minute. If this is going to be meaningful, then I really have to sort of tell people about who I am. And otherwise they won't care. Like if they don't care who the author is.
Right.
So, so a lot of people that I worked with, probably, David, you probably wouldn't know, about me and the guitar so much, because I would have these conversations with the guitar players and the bands.
Yeah.
So,
But I didn't know that you were, I didn't know you were played guitar and you were enthused. I know that because Eric told me about that. But
you and I wouldn't sit around and talk about guitars.
I didn't know the depth and the fact that you got guitars, some of the gifts that you got and how much it meant to you. That, because I'm around guitar players and I always sort of gravitate to guitar players, that was really like, whoa, man. And I'm glad that was in the book,
I appreciate it. I think, as you read, it helped me immediately establish relationships beyond, just record sales. I mean, I know we have to sell records, I know we have to sell CDs, but again, for me, it's always the music. It's always the music. And since I've been a kid, it's the music. It's in here. Yeah. And so, it was a natural position for me to be in, because this was much deeper. Look, my job was promotion and marketing and to know how to, to get to fans. That's my job. But also I had a very, I'm just interested in more. Yeah. So, if I meet another guitar player, at the end of the day, everybody's a guitar player first, right? At least in this time period. I don't know, after the MTV thing takes off, then it's like, it's different. But people like Eric Clapton, David Gilmour, Ronnie Wood, Keith Richards, these guys all wanted to be great players first.
Right.
They became rock stars second.
Right.
The rock star wasn't even a job then. I mean, you have to understand, like, there's pop stars, but there's no rock stars until people start touring, and then there's a thing called a rock star. But, so for me to meet people that were my heroes, like a David Gilmour, because I was listening to Pink Floyd before I got to Columbia Records.
So great.
And, and Keith Richards, for me, I learned how to play guitar listening to his albums, listening to those first few Stones albums. I don't know, my little, house, blue collar house in Bellflower, California, and I've got a record player and a tone arm. I go, what? How do you do that? How's
in your head when you read it? It's great.
And then I'm become a huge fan because of for all the reasons all of us know. Yeah, he becomes my two favorite artists in the world are Bob Dylan and Keith Richards. Imagine me, and I get to meet Keith Richards.
Getting yelled at by getting Keith. That I go back to that bottle story because like my heroes get mad at me.
That was a bummer.
And then he realized he was wrong. But
you want to share a little bit about the story, Paul?
The first time I meet him, the first time I meet him is in 1978. But Ronnie Wood had an album called "Give Me Some Neck." It was a solo album. So the first two Rolling Stones I meet are Ron Wood and Keith Richards. He's just a great guy. And before I know it, I'm talking about guitars. Before I know it, I'm invited to a rehearsal. And so I'm at a rehearsal for New Barbarians. And as soon as I walk in, Woody takes me over and he goes, you got to meet Keith. Okay, now, this guy, I've been to so many concerts since I was a teenager, the movies, the albums, the songs, they're all in my head, right? I'm learning how to play guitar, right? So as much as I'd like to tell you guys, I was really cool. I just walked up and said, no, I'm fucking starstruck.
You're like,
I'm just like
trying to be cool.
Like this. I'm just like, so I didn't get to say much because he was very welcoming.
Yeah.
And he said, Woody says you're a great guy. Nice to meet you. It gives me a hug. First thing he says, want to do a line? And there's like 4 big, rails of Coke on the drum stand.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
can't say no.
Sure. At this point, I'm no stranger to cocaine, although I learned how to put a lid on it. I mean, you can get carried away with that stuff.
We get it.
But okay, so I do a couple lines of Coke with Keith, and then I just thought I'll retire now, and I'm just gonna leave the record business. I'm done.
You hit the pinnacle.
Anyway, So anyway, so I get to watch the rehearsal, and which now this was amazing. Okay, and I write in my book. Okay, the first thing that happens is there are rock people in the band because there's Zigaboo Modoleste is the drummer. So you guys as drummers know Zigaboo, right? Okay, guys are canon, right? Okay.
Stanley Clarke.
Right. Yeah. They hire Stanley Clarke as a bass player, but Stanley Clarke is a jazz fusion bass player.
That's a great story too.
Right. Now I am watching Keith Richards teach Stanley Clarke how to play rock and roll. Okay, this is one of the most amazing moments of my life in the music industry. They start, and you guys know rock and roll is very simple. It's rock and roll. It's like a wah, a wah. Okay, so Stanley's like a wah, a wah, a boom, boom, ba boom, ba boom, boom. No, Stanley, stop, Stanley. It's too many notes. It's very simple. Stanley, it's very simple. It's just a wah, a wah. Okay, they start again. Boom, 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 boom. No, Stanley, it's too many notes. Stanley's starting to get mad. Stanley's thinking, well, you called for Stanley Clarke. This is Stanley Clarke.
Yeah.
I'm watching two giants of music have to work this out. Okay. This is blowing my mind. And eventually they reach a compromise because they're professional, right? They're
sure.
They're going to, okay. At the same time, the girl that's in charge of Keith, whose name will remain nameless, right? She's supposed to be taking care of Keith. Okay. This whole tour, as you will read, it was like Better Living Through Chemistry. This was a very druggy situation.
Tour, right?
Just the way it was. Okay. Yeah. So the girl sitting next to me, and she's just completely out of it. And I noticed that her purse, smoke's coming out of it. And I nudge her and I go, we'll call her Jill for now. I go, Jill, I think your purse is on fire. And so she looks at me. I go, no, I've never seen a fire in a purse before, but I think yours is on fire. Do you want me to help you put it out? She nods, yes. I said, I'm going to have to turn your purse over to put it out. She goes, it's okay. I turn her purse over. The first three things that fall out are three girly gadgets. One of them, I knew what it was. The other two, I have no idea what they do. Then the rest is all matches. All matches. She had been on tour with Keith for a couple of months. There were matches from every hotel, every club, every bar they'd been in, every size, shape, wooden, cardboard, different logos. And I guess one of the matches had hit a striker, right? And it started this fire. But I mean, think about this. This is rock and roll, okay? A purse full of matches and feminine items. That's it, okay? If you want to know what rock and roll was like in the 70s, that was it, okay?
Yeah.
So I had to write that in the book. So anyway, but that tour was really a lifestyle that even was too much for me. I mean, you'd wake up in the afternoon. You don't know if you're hungry for breakfast or dinner because this is what time you wake up because you were up the whole night before. Right. And you would get in a private car, go to a private plane. There's party in the car. There's party on the plane. You get back in another car. There's more party in the car. I was surprised that these guys actually played as great as they did, and they played brilliant every night. But there was just a lot of substances. Okay. Yeah. And I write about him in the book. I go up to a line. I didn't cross a line. I mean, David, it's a code. When you're on the road, it's a code. Some stuff stays on the road. Yeah. But you read enough to understand that it's Better Living Through Chemistry. Okay. Yeah. So
the bottle story really.
Yeah. So we're on the plane, and and Keith's pretty out of it, and it's kind of a bummer for me because he's a big hero of mine. He's in bad shape. I mean, every day he's pretty messed up, and I'm not enjoying seeing him in that state. So we're on the plane, and he comes up to me, and he looks at me, and he goes, you stole my Rebel Yell. Now, Rebel Yell is 100 proof alcohol that you could only buy in the South. Okay. It tastes like lighter fluid. I have no idea why Keith likes this stuff. So I'm like, Keith, and I'm looking at, he's my hero, and his face is kind of twisted and everything. And I'm like, Keith, man, I didn't steal your Rebel Yell. I mean, we're on a fucking airplane. Where would I put it? So now it gets comical. Now me and Keith Richards are crawling on the floor of the airplane looking for this bottle of Rebel Yell, right? And finally I find it and I go, see here. And he just scowled and goes, But years later, when we signed the Rolling Stones, I met him again. Yeah. And then he was the guy who, who he is. Yeah. Which is really, he's a wonderful human being. I mean, people don't know this about him. He is such a nice guy. I mean, when I re-met him, I was at a video shoot for Harlem Shuffle off a record they had called Dirty Work. And I walked in and I said, hi, listen. And the first thing he said to me is, don't I know you? He goes, haven't we met before? And I go, yeah, on the New Barbarians tour. And he went, oh my God. He said, oh, I was so bad on that tour. He said, I offended so many people. He said, did I do anything to offend you? And I said, kinda. And I didn't want to have the conversation. And he said, what? I said, well, you stole me. You accused me of stealing your bottle of Rebel Yell. And he goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Okay. He gets up from a chair, hugs me, and tells me I apologize. I am so sorry. I was so bad on that tour. And then we had a wonderful, then I had the conversation I always wanted to have with him. You're reading the book.
Yeah.
I had to gush on him for a second. I said, you got to understand, I learned how to play guitar, like listening to you. And I was telling him about my high school band. And then he said, oh, you played all the Stones covers. I went, yeah. And he goes, but they didn't sound exactly right, did they? And I'm thinking, how could he know that? And I go, no, they didn't. And we could never figure it out. And he goes, that's because you were not in open G tuning. Because it's my secret. Yeah. So many of these songs are in open G. He goes, listen, now it's two guitar guys talking. Yeah. Okay. He goes, Paul, listen, when you leave the video shoot, go home, grab a guitar, take the top string off the guitar. For a guitar player, it's the low E string. Yeah. Okay. Tune the A string to G. Leave the rest the same. Take the high E, tune that to D. It's an open G. Bar anywhere on the, anywhere, and put two fingers down. I explain in the book how to do it. Bar on and off, and report back tomorrow. I go, yes, sir. Okay. I go home. Two boys are there. Sharon says, hey, guys, how you doing? I got to do something. I run upstairs. Take this thing. All right. I do exactly what Keith says. Every single Rolling Stone hit, Start Me Up, Tumbling Dice, Brown Sugar, Honky Tonk, you name them. They're all in G tuning. Yeah. Okay. Take It So Hard is in G tuning. Okay. Yeah. They're all falling out of the guitar. Right. I am freaked out of I'm like, as a guitar player, it's a whole new window opened, a whole new door opened. I'm like, oh my God. I'm running downstairs yelling at my family, G tuning. They think I'm nuts, right? I'm like, I go back the next day. I don't know who had a bigger smile on their face, me or Keith.
Wow.
But
he was so happy that you got it.
Yes, but he's that guy. Yeah. There's a picture in the book of me and him and Adam, right? Who's I believe 8 then. I took him to see the Rolling Stones. And I took him backstage because I wanted to meet Keith. And there's a cute story back there in the book about him playing pool with the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we took a picture. And in this picture, when you see in the book, we're kneeling down. The only reason we're kneeling down is because I was standing up. Adam's down there. Keith with me. And Keith looks over and he goes, hey, Paul, he's little. We should kneel down. He's like short. Like we should kneel down. This is Keith's idea, right?
Oh, man.
The guy's got a big heart. I mean, people should know that. So that's why we're kneeling down, because Keith's suggestion, and you read in the book, a cute story about Adam and what he thought of the Rolling Stones.
There's so many great stories. Paul McCartney, the story that Larry DeVito sent me on my Facebook page. He mentioned, because I got a great story about that. You talk about it. I said he talks about the cones when he goes going across the bridge, when you go into the was it a Moroccan restaurant there in San Francisco?
Right. But Liberty put that on his website.
No. Liberty on my Facebook page. Liberty wrote when I commented that you're going to be on the podcast. He wrote, "Got to tell you, Dave, about the cones."
Yeah, I got to tell you. Okay, I wonder if Lib's got the book.
It's in the book. It's in the book.
It is in the book. I wonder if Lib's got the book, or if he just remembers the cones. All right, so this is a famous story. Yeah. So I want to, I just like hanging out with musicians. So I got Billy's band, and Billy didn't want to come, and I said, hey, I have this great Moroccan restaurant in San Francisco. You want to go? And we were staying in Oakland. They went, yeah. So I got a station wagon. I put Liberty in the car. Their sound engineer, McGeehee was his last name, Richie Kanata. Yeah. Sax players in the car. Yeah. I'm trying to remember who else is in the car. Anyway,
bass player was
we got maybe it's Dougie Stickmeyer. So we all go to this Moroccan restaurant. Okay. So we get sloshed on this red wine, and we are, I guess, more sloshed than I thought we were. So we get back in the car to go home. I got elected the designated driver because they were just too wiped out. And we're driving across the Oakland Bay Bridge, and they're fixing the Oakland Bay Bridge. So on the edge, on the right, on the edge of the right lane, there are all these orange cones. So Liberty's sitting in the back seat on the right-hand side, on the passenger side in the back seat. And he yells from the back seat, hey, Rapp, can you get close to one of those cones? And I'm like, yeah. So I pull over I get close to one of those cones. And as soon as I do, Liberty snaps open the door and knocks the cone off the Oakland Bay Bridge into the waiting bay below. We all have this light bulb moment. It's an aha moment. Oh my God, there's so many cones. Let's knock them all off the bridge. So I'm starting to swerve every time I see a cone. Lib snaps the door open. Whack, 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 whack. Right
in time, in a rhythm.
Yes, in time. I'm getting into a rhythm, which I'm sure Liberty DeVito appreciates, right? Because he's a drummer.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, McGee, the guy in the front, he gets into the act. So we are knocking all these cones off the bridge. Now we are so loaded. None of us think about, well, hello, there could be, DUI, there could be reckless, there could be city property destruction. I mean, you could get into big trouble so many ways for doing this, right? So I don't know what happened, but, it's a famous story, and somebody upstairs was looking out for us. And I happened to see Richie not too long ago. Richie Canati, he's got a studio here on Long Island. As soon as I walk in, he looks at me and goes, Rapp, the cones.
Wow. You have so many good, I mean, there's so many great, rock and roll stories. And I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. I really enjoyed, like, when you first broke Blue Oyster Cult, those stories about bringing them in, and you're thinking they're going to play in a smaller venue. Right. You end up playing a bigger venue, and you end up selling it out. Or maybe
very close to it. Yeah,
it was really big, and the things with those days, like hearing that was before. Like I think I was playing bars and clubs. I might not have been in the Hooters by then, but I remember, watching that band evolve and hearing how you came up with these ideas to do these things. Well, and the was great.
I have a big imagination. So
yeah, you do.
And they gave me the money, right? I mean, it was like, hey, I found this laser beam. If we shoot it off a mountain, it'll really freak people out. It's going to shoot for 30 miles.
Yeah.
And I need $4,000. They were like, sure. Okay. So, we did that in Long Beach, California to promote the Blue Oyster Cult. It was a laser beam that actually was invented by a laboratory, shot off Signal Hill all the way to Pasadena.
How about that?
If you knew that it was Blue Oyster Cult promotion and they were playing and the laser beam was going to sort of dance to this new album, that was Agents of Fortune at the time that had the Don't Fear the Reaper track on it. If you knew that, it was like people were having laser parties. They were out on their front lawns. They were, laying back on a blanket, drinking wine, doing whatever, look up, and there's this giant light in the sky. Now, if you didn't know what that was, you thought it was War of the Worlds, right? Because that's what it looked like. There's a picture in the book. It doesn't quite do it justice, but it gives you an idea of what this thing looked like. It was so big and so massive that when we turned it on, I almost wanted to turn it off. I went, no, this is going to be too much. This is too heavy, because nobody had ever seen anything like it. It's a giant beam that shoots for 30 miles, and it's as bright at the end as it is at the origin because it's laser technology. So this thing looks like War of the Worlds. So people are driving on the freeway going, holy shit. They think aliens have landed. I mean, it was pretty nuts, So
you didn't get in trouble that the airplanes off the ceiling of the roof when you were that promotion. That one was an amazing one. I think it was Elvis Costello. Oh, Elton was the one.
Elton John, we were flying. That's how the book got its title, Gliders Over Hollywood, because we were flying gliders.
Bigger things in the sky.
Right.
The other thing that's in the title is airships, referring, of course, to the Pink Floyd airship, which was talking about things that nobody had ever seen before. I mean, this massive blimp that became this. I mean, talk about that a little bit, Bob.
Well,
there it is.
Yeah, there it is. I always, when I do a big event promotion, which to me means event means a lot of people. Like, look here, right?
Yeah, sure.
Whether it be shooting a laser beam off a mountainside or I once got Will Smith out of a magic illusion in front of Virgin Megastore. I made him appear out of nowhere. So those kind of things.
You thought big.
I want to take a page from the band, either from their music or from their live performance. The laser beam for the Blue Oyster Cult was because they were foremost in laser technology when bands started to use lasers in their production.
Right.
The Who were early in it. Blue Oyster Cult were early in it.
Yeah.
So this would make sense. It's authentic. It ties into them.
Yeah.
Pink Floyd is known for their inflatables. Okay. For years, they've have floated this giant inflatable pig, which we first saw in the Animals tour, which, floated across stadiums. And they're known for this. So I was trying to think of something super big because it was going to be the Division Bell album, which was really a good album because it was the first album after Rogers left the band. Everybody was under a lot of pressure. There was a lot of legal stuff, and in that record is A Momentary Lapse of Reason. It's still a really good album.
Yeah. But
this one, they really had time as a band. They had jammed together. That was really going to be a band record. It was really going to be more, very much more Pink Floyd. Yeah. And I wanted to do something mega. Like, I knew that they would do a tour. I knew that they would sell well, but I wanted it to be bigger. At this point, it's 1994. There are younger people that I want to know, who Pink Floyd is. Yeah. I want it to be Beatlesque. I want something so big that when it hits a city, everybody and their grandmother knows Pink Floyd is coming or knows there's a thing called Pink Floyd, whether you're a younger kid or it's your grandmother, just like when the Beatles came, everybody knew what a Beatle was, right? So this is what I want. So I was sitting in my office. We had moved to Madison Avenue, and I was about 14 floors up, and I'm looking out over the Hudson River, and I see the Budweiser blimp, and it's huge and it's majestic. When blimps reach a certain size, they're called airships. And I see this thing, and I'm like, that's what we need. We want one of those. So I ran out to my assistant, Rasa, and I go, look, find out how much it costs to get one of those. Oh, I want that.
That's awesome.
So she found out it was, it was a company called Airship International. You read about it in the book.
Yeah.
And, but, at first I thought it would be a giant floating pig, right? The great thing about an airship is the manager was thinking of the same thing when I called him with the idea. He said, oh, I was thinking about a hot air balloon. And I said, yeah, but those only go where the wind blows. I've been in them. We need to control it. I said, it can float into every city. We can put radio stations in the gondola, right? So let's just say you don't even look up, and you've got, this is, the morning show from WMMR and, in Philadelphia. And, we're going to be flying over Philly today. Wave to us, as we go by. So, and we gave rides to fans. This thing was amazing.
Even the band wanted to fly a thing.
But the whole reason it got done was, look, there's money and then there's money.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're going to promote Pink Floyd, it's going to cost you a couple $1 million right off the bat with videos and in-store stuff and merchandising and everything. Okay. Now you want to add an airship. Okay. Okay. An airship in 1994 cost $1 million for 3 months. You rent it. You rent it and you paint it. Okay. You put graphics on it. I thought it would be a pig. Gilmore didn't want to go backwards. He said, no, that's an old image. I want it to be new. He got a hold of Storm Thorgerson, who you'll read about in the book, who's
awesome.
Who has, if people don't know this, Storm Thorgerson and his partner, Poe Powell, had a company called Hypnosis. They've probably designed 80% of the album covers you own. Okay,
Yeah.
not just Pink Floyd, but Led
Brilliant.
Zeppelin, Peter
Great
Gabriel, Black
documentary.
Sabbath. It goes on and on.
Perfect Blue.
Yeah. So he's he's wonderful. He's genius. I called him up to do it, but I had to talk the same guy, Don Einer, who you heard about, Alice in Chains, into this airship. Now, this is the president of a record company. Okay, he would see me in the hallways, and he would look at me and go, "I don't want an airship. I don't need an airship," and he'd run the other way, running away from me. I mean, I'm. At this point, I have I'm a senior VP of marketing, of creative marketing for Columbia. Right. I talked the guy who owned the airship down to $750,000, but it's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
The reason it got done was I called the manager, Steve O'Rourke, and I said, "Steve, I've got Donnie this close. I just can't close him. I've told him it's the biggest billboard in the history of rock, right? Yeah. It floats into every city. It'll go to Canada where Michael Cole is. He's the national promoter.
Yeah.
We'll give rides to fans. It's going to be historical. It's going to get news footage. It's going to get television footage. It's like you have to understand." So O'Rourke called Donnie and said, "Look, the band really wants this. They want it so bad. They're going to do something that no artists ever do. They're going to help pay for it." Yeah. This is not, David, you guys don't pay for anything. I know. We pay for everything. That's the way it works. I know. Yeah. You get a call from Steve Mountain, but we're the Hooters, right? Okay, I got it. So, exactly. But they want, and one of the reasons was they had all learned to fly. Right. They wanted to log time in an airship.
How about that?
So they paid $250,000. We paid $250,000, and Michael Cole, the national promoter, said, "I'll chip in if you can fly it to Canada and help me sell tickets in Canada. I'll chip in." So everybody chipped in, and it's legendary. I don't know what to tell you. It's just legendary. It was the most fun. That's another thing. I just everything I did. It was like, yes, I know we have to sell, records and CDs, but can we have fun? Can we put smiles on fans' faces? Can we make them feel like part of the tribe? Yeah. Make them feel like, like it's a big family. Yeah. That's just kind of how I think. Right. So,
and Columbia was a tribe too. That was a family. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was amazing. It was the biggest toy I ever had. It was like you're a kid when you have airplanes and rock, whatever.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
This is over 200 feet, and there's people in it, and you can send it to places. Yeah. I literally parked it. I was in it. Yeah. If you're in an airship and you shut the engines off, it just hangs in the air like Superman. It just hangs it right. Yeah. I parked it next to the Tower Records tower in Hollywood, the one that's shaped like 45, stack 45.
Yeah.
Because my friend John Faggett, who was the head of, used to be the head of promotion for Columbia, was now the head of promotion for Capitol. Yeah. Right. So John. Yeah. So his shades are down because in that building, it's a circular building, and a lot of people have their shades down when the sun comes up. I park this thing, which is as big or bigger than the actual building of of Capitol Records. And I'm on a cell phone, and I call John. "Hey, Rapp, how you doing?" I go, "Hi, John. I'm having a lot of fun. Open your blinds." And he opens his blinds, and I hear this scream like, "Rapp, are you in that thing?" And he falls off his chair. I watched him fall off his chair, right? In his office. So, we had a lot of fun with it. We took it to Joe Robbie Stadium at the opening show. It appeared out of nowhere, which you'll read about. That was dangerous, but you'll read about how that happened. We had to make the thing appear, magically on the top of the stage at the encore. So it's an interesting story because we had to do it without blowing it up with pyro, and it's a whole thing. But we did.
People can read about. I am so bummed out. This Rapp, we're coming to the end, and listen, anybody's watching this podcast, get this book. It's phenomenal.
Dave, we do have time, Dave, for a little bit of time, because we got
to. Before we end, I got to just say one thing about the Hooters, if I could.
Oh yeah, please.
Okay. And you read in the book. I literally in the book say, "Stop reading this." I talk about the Hooters, and then I go, "Stop reading this," and immediately go listen to All You Zombies, and we danced. You will become an instant fan.
Thanks, man. That was really nice.
Well, Dave, come on. I mean, so it's literally like, yeah, you're reading my book, but just stop reading this and go listen to these guys, okay?
Wow.
People need to understand what a great band the Hooters is. This is not a band that's a book one, page one, rock, this, that. This is original sounds, original music. The first record that I had to promote was the first album with All You Zombies on it.
Yeah, Nervous Night.
I'd heard this song and I thought, oh my God, this is one of the most amazing things I've ever heard.
Wow.
I don't know what will happen at rock radio. This is different for them. And I didn't know. Okay, here, this is an exclusive for In the Pocket. Okay, nobody knows this story. Okay, I'm sweating bullets because I don't know. And I just want it to, and usually when you start a band, like if it's pretty good music, you could pick up, 50 stations, 60 stations. Next week, you're promoting it. You're picking up another 20, another 30. Next week, only superstar acts start out. The rock panel is 150 stations across the country. Okay. Only superstar acts are going to hit 120, 130 right away. Okay. We send Zombies out and I literally don't know. And I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting. I'm a spiritual guy. Probably send a little note up to the man above, if you want to help out, great. First week, All You Zombies, 120 radio stations.
Wow.
The Hooters were established at rock radio in 1 week. Done.
Wow.
And then after that, it was just like, hey, by the way, now you're behind. Remember that band, the Hooters? Yeah, well, they're on 120 stations, and hey, you're missing in action. So you please add the record.
Wow, Rob, thanks for that story.
And the rest is history. But David, I don't know if you guys knew that or not. But
no, I did not know. I did not know.
Yeah, blew my mind. Blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to real quick, another Philly musician that we're friends with that you talk about in the books, a different kind of magic, the magic of the airship, but the magic of getting a song to number one. I know we're getting a little late on time, but if you can kind of give us an abbreviated story of how you took Tommy Conwell to number one.
Great.
Yeah, I don't even know if Tommy knows this story. I mean, if you guys know Tommy,
I hit him up. I told him. I said,
yeah, he should get this. He should, and I hope that it doesn't make him sad because he had a number one record, but he got help.
Yeah, right. So, that's right. You got number one for any time. That's awesome.
Right. Anyway, long story short, as you read about it in the book, is that the charts are done by math. Who's ever got the most rotations in a week goes to number one. And a lot of people loved "I'm Not Your Man," and they helped us with this record, giving it a lot of rotation. We worked it into the top 15, the top 10, the top 5. And it was a miracle that it was in the top 5 because it's a brand new artist. Tommy Conway is in the middle of Foreigners, Easy Top, Fleetwood Mac. It didn't really belong there.
Right.
But we were good promotion people, and we knew how to do stuff like that.
What are we doing?
So now Tommy Mottola is the president. I went in there with my second in command, a great record guy, Rocky. Jim Del Bazzo, Rocky. Yeah. We're ready to take a bow, right? Mottola says, "You guys, this is genius. You brought this record into top 5." And he goes, and because of that, I'm going to cross it over to top 40, and I need this record to go to number 1. Now, me and Rocky we're turning white, green, purple, because at this point, a record that's been on the radio this long is burnt out. Like, we've been begging people to just keep playing it to get it to top 5. So we know nobody's going to play this record for another week. There's just not. So we concocted this idea called Heavy for a Day. Where we called all the radio stations and said, "Hey, that record? I'm Not Your Man." And go, "Yeah, we know it's burning out, but can you just play it in heavy rotation for one day?" And they were like, "Yeah, we could do that. Any particular day you want?" And we said, "Yeah, next Tuesday, if you don't mind." Now, 70% of the radio stations didn't even know what we were doing. Tuesday is the day that radio adds music, and that's when they do their reports. Okay, whoever's got the most spins or who's got the most rotations is going to be number 1. Okay. So you can read about it in the book, but everyone did us a favor. Everyone played "I'm Not Your Man" in heavy that day. And that record the next day, like a fastball, shot from 5 to 1, which blew, Columbia record. People were dancing in the aisles. the problem was that we did not realize, we thought we were geniuses. If you do something like that, it makes every other record go backwards. And when records go backwards on the chart, that's when radio drops records. Yeah. And every other label were calling, screaming, what the hell did you guys just do? They had to call radio and go, no, don't drop our records. The charts are screwy. It's like Rap and Rocky did some crazy thing. The whole business was like, cuckoo for a second because, we had done this. But my favorite part of this story, I'll just tell you this, and then we're done. Okay, my favorite part is the night before, I'm looking at Rocky, and he looks at me and he goes, "Oh my God!" I go, "What?" He goes, "I got to call Bon Jovi." And him and John were friends, right? I go, "Why?" He said, "Because he's number 2 and he thinks he's going to number 1, and he's gonna really be pissed." And I said, "Well, do you think you should call him, or maybe you should just see it?" He goes, "No, he's gonna be pissed either way." Okay, there are 2 great phone calls that I heard from being on the other side of the phone, right? One is Bob Dylan and his manager, which you read about in the book. Okay. Great. But this one is Rocky and Bon Jovi. John, hey, hi, it's Rocky. Hey, listen, I know you're number 2. Yeah. No, I know you think you're going to be number 1 tomorrow. I can, Bon Jovi's going, no, I've got all the money. I'm going to be number 1. No. I'm calling you because me and Rap have to do something. And I can hear in there, so what are you talking about? You and Rap have to do something. He said, well, Tommy asked us to do something. So we have a record that's going to kind of slide into that spot, right? And now he explodes. I hear scream profanity. What the fuck are you doing? It's like, I'm number 2. I'm going to be number 1. I've got all this momentum. What the fuck are you talking about? There's like an explosion, right? And then this is the best part. And then Rocky says, oh, no, John, calm down. It's okay because you can be number 1 next week. And I look at Rocky, I said, did you just tell John Bon Jovi when he can be number 1? And Rocky goes, yeah. And I said, do we really have that kind of power? And the truth is, for that week, we did.
Amazing.
That's
great stuff.
Great
stuff. Hey, folks, we didn't even scratch the surface of the stories in this book. So it's available wherever you get your books. It's called Gliders Over Hollywood. There it is on the screen. Gliders Over Hollywood, Airships, Airplay, and the Art of Rock Promotion. If you're into music at all, you got to check this book out. Because again, I mean, we only talked about, I don't know, 5% of the stories in this book. I mean, we didn't get into McCartney, Dylan, Elton, how Tony Bennett, kind of inspired you when you were at UCLA. Yeah. There's so much great stuff in this book. Terrific. It's amazing.
Terrific. Well, we're gonna sign off, but don't go anywhere. Rap. We're gonna talk to you for a bit, and then everybody else, thanks. You want to sign us off, Andy?
I just say thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh my God,
the pleasure was ours.
Okay. Man,
so thanks so much to Paul Rappaport. Check out his book. For Dave and Fred, I'm Andy. We'll see you next time on In the Pocket.